Hi everyone, good Wednesday morning and welcome to GoLocal Live. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagle. Thanks for tuning in as we welcome Juan Wilson on to talk about the upcoming YesPVD Virtual Youth Summit on August 29th. Before we do though, I want to give you the latest news. Another homicide in the city of Providence, marking the 9th this year and the 4th in over a week. You can get more information on that on GoLocal. In addition, Providence Police will be live at 11 a.m. You can see that video on GoLocal Prov. But Juan Wilson, want to thank you for joining us today. Obviously, big news getting ready for next Saturday, continuing to announce new speakers. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, we appreciate being able to be the media sponsor of YesPVD, a wildly successful event that was held in person in recent years. Of course, now due to COVID-19, having a virtual summit. So I'd really like you first, Juan, to sort of introduce YesPVD to those folks who might not know. Talk a little bit about the brainchild and then, of course, tacking over to the virtual world.
So the Youth Summit actually started in 2015. It's now called YesPVD, which is Youth Empowerment Summit, formerly Turn Up Our Eye. It's a culturally relevant, diverse career conference. So we actually put practitioners in front of youth in the community so that the practitioners resemble the community they're coming from and professions that they might not see emulated in their community. So we have a lot of guest speakers and workshops, and we also give incentives to the youth. So we've been doing it for about 5 years throughout a few high schools, Roger Williams University, Providence Public Library, AS 220. So it's been a success. We've served over 1,200 students within the past 5 years. And we've had over 100 plus workshops. We've given out a lot of incentives from gift cards to music headphones, which I'm wearing, one of the companies that I'm vested in, and one of our sponsors as well.
Fantastic. Now, as you mentioned, obviously inspiring for youth to see career paths in front of them, but also a lot of fun as well. So yes. When you were planning this virtual one, talk with us about what the day is going to look like, and then I've got a list here of the speakers that I want to let folks know who's going to be taking part.
So thanks for asking. Yes, so I've been spending the past couple of months, once we had to pivot, because originally it was scheduled for Hope High School in April. So we had to pivot due to COVID, and so I was looking for some platforms to host it on. So I identified 2 platforms. One is called Remo, where we'll actually be the assembly, sort of like the auditorium in the cafeteria or cafetorium area. And then we'll have the campus where the workshops are held, and that's with Mighty Network. And that's actually the platform we're going to be launching the YesPVD Virtual Academy. So the day starts with meet and greets in this. It's a really cool platform. We're able to move around to tables. So there's like a floor plan. So it's not your typical Zoom where I call it Hollywood Squares. Where you have everyone there.
The Brady Bunch.
Yeah, the Brady Bunch, Hollywood Squares, Jeopardy, if you want to call it, if you were actually calling on people. But you're able to jump around to tables of 6, and then it does give you the 6 spread on grid on the screen, but you're able to bounce from each table to table based on availability of a chair. So it gives some fluidity and gives you a ability to meet new people and network. So we're on that platform in the morning. Okay. And that's where we have the presenters. Then they break out into breakout sessions, and that's when they go over to YesPVD's Virtual Academy. And once you go into this, there's different cohorts and different classrooms based on the workshops that are presented. And based on your registration, you'll have access to those particular workshops and cohorts. And then we come back to Remo for the closeout with the keynote. And then I open up Remo for just networking and inviting some other colleagues and friends and family to come in.
Fantastic. Now, GoLocal had the opportunity last week to preview a couple of the speakers. You've made some announcements now moving forward. So I kind of want to run down these for folks who might not have seen. Sure. As you said, really identifying those professionals, as you said, for young people in the city to know certain career paths, to see what that might be out there for them. One of them, Marcy Reyes with the Financial Literacy Youth Initiative, the FLY initiative. I love that acronym. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about that. Obviously, there's always so much discussion about how financial literacy should be in the schools, may or may not be, but I mean, really a pragmatic subject matter for youth, if there ever was one.
So I'm glad you mentioned Marcy. So ironically, Fly Initiative is in the school. It's not really an after-school program. It is currently in Central High School, and
Oh, fantastic.
it's a really great program. And I think they adapted it to their math curriculum. And the reason why she started with Central, she's alumni of Central. Marcy's program's phenomenal. It actually teaches youth on how to apply for grants, so they have less loans, if not zero loans, to go to college.
Oh, good.
They also show how to invest in stocks and starting early, especially now with fintech. You have a lot of financial technology apps that give people access, so there's lower barriers of entry to get involved in investing. Home ownership and credit, and you say maintaining your credit or starting your credit, and just even understanding long-term and short-term goals. So there's a lot of literacy, and it's not, to me, it's for adults too, but we're trying to be proactive where we work with youth. And YesPVD does target 13 to 24-year-olds.
Yes.
And the reason why we target 13 to 24-year-olds is because 13, they normally age out of services. And then they're not old enough to get into the job market unless the summer jobs are 14, most jobs are 16. And then when you go to college, some of the biggest expenses is paying for school.
Yes.
So you're 18 making a big expense choice, right? So we also have some college students, which my son, who's been coordinator of the summit for the past 3 years, he's like, Dad, we don't have this in college. He goes, we have career fairs with HR departments, but we don't have practitioners that we have reached to. So we decided to help fill the gap, because you still have the young folks in high school talking to practitioners, but in the middle is a college student, right? So they're closer to the age of the high school student, and they're close enough to finishing their degree and a possible career. So that practitioner could be their mentor, and they can also help TA a course. We also encourage youth to do courses as well. So, but yeah, so we try to target based on youth needs and surveying youth, and they normally talk about the industries and things that they're interested in, and that's how we configure the summit currently.
Okay, the Fly Initiative with Marcy Reyes, one of the speakers.
Yep.
Another one we
Yes.
featured last week as well, Wayne Montague Jr., a Providence native who has made his way to the top echelons of the entertainment industry. Let's talk a little bit about that. Of course, entertainment, music, production is something that a lot of young people are interested in. But Wayne brings that unique perspective as to how to make it in the business and as a career. So what can we expect to hear from Wayne?
So yeah, Wayne is a native from here. He grew up here, went to classical high school, went to talent development at URI, came back and got his MBA at URI, um, and he worked for PwC in Boston originally, and then he eventually took a position at Madison Square Garden, where he advanced himself to director of finance at Madison Square Garden. So he works with most of the financials of everything that comes through Madison Square Garden when it comes to the large concerts and the different events that they have. And so it's just great. We always pull natives from Providence, and virtually makes it easier a little, because now they don't have to travel. They don't have to have accommodations, and it's a little bit more convenient. So now we can cast a wider net for the speakers that are coming in, and even if they are. And so I have another speaker as well. He's an author from Florida who chimed in. We have another author, another speaker, keynote speaker, Dr. Dina Waite, who also is a native from Rhode Island. Went from GED to her doctorate, right? So we attended high school together. She didn't finish high school, but she did finish her GED.
Wow.
She just completed her doctorate this past spring, graduated had her ceremony in the summer, and I reached out to her, and she's like, her story is phenomenal. And
I was
so
going to
she's
say,
like,
how inspiring is this story?
so she's loving the opportunity. So this would be her first time to really speak on this platform, especially in her hometown. And that's a lot of firsts for most of our workshop presenters. Some of them are new, some of them are educators, some of them just want to reach out to youth and pass on that skill set, including myself. As we move on, I really want this youth summit to be run by youth. So I'm hopefully setting the framework, and then
fantastic.
Adults fade in the back and just provide those resources, those adult needs resources that they need, and let them take the lead. Just like with all the protests and everything else that's going on, they're going to move the needle.
As you said, youth is served and will be served, and a couple more of the fantastic speakers you have. Let's talk about There's always a discussion about the need to pay attention. There's always been, in recent years, the need to pay attention to girls, but of course to pay attention to boys. Now, Jarrell Grimes specifically is speaking to these young men about finding their own voices. Talk about us
Yes.
a little bit about Jarrell.
So Jarrell is the author that I mentioned that's down in Florida. He's also a native from Rhode Island, originally from Newport. He has his own publishing company, so he publishes. He's also an artist, but he's published a few books, and that his current publication is focusing on why Black boys don't speak. You know what I'm saying, and trying to have them voice. You know what I'm saying, and reading the book and talking about finding themselves, self-awareness, and speaking out and not being afraid to self-advocacy. That's something we're working on. And then when you mention we also have how to run, because we're always talking about civic engagement and civic and education, telling folks to vote. And young people say they don't like the lesser of two evils. They don't like their choices. So I always encourage them to be the choice, right? So run for office, not just vote. And so we work with the elections, and we work with the Secretary of State's office to pre-register youth at 16 years old. So when they're 18, they have a little bit more understanding of that process. And so we also have a workshop with 4 young women who set a pack in Pawtucket, and this is their first time running for office. And so they're talking about what encouraged them and how they started to run for office. And that's for also women and males of color.
Fantastic, timely issue, of course, with 2020 and election season upon us. And another important issue, mental health, of course,
Yes.
always important now more than ever in 2020. Talk with us about Brian Lally.
So Brian Lally is also a friend since we went to Nathan Bishop on the East Side, Hope High School, Hope alumni, both of us. And he's been a practitioner in mental health for a number of years. And he spent a lot of time with adolescents. He's worked in colleges after he graduated for college, and now he's in this field. And so we surveyed some students with Rhode Island After School Network, and they had their youth town hall recently. We had 3 throughout the summer, and the last one we just had with Treasury Seth Magazina, and we also had Congressman Cicilline also on the panel with some youth. And we have 2 of the youth that were on the panel also being announced today, hosting a workshop as well. And so we understand the importance of anxiety, especially with COVID. We're talking about just being secluded and no human contact, physical human contact with their friends on a regular basis. Even with going back to school, it's really challenging, right? And it's scary because it's being around this environment where there's this deadly virus that's out there that's silent. You don't know if some people are asymptomatic, and then you're concerned, you want to be around your peers, but then you might have vulnerable relatives at home, and then you bring it home. And so there's concerns that youth were talking about, but at the same time, they're also feeling those anxieties, you know what I'm saying, that disconnect, because even with this virtual summit, like I know it's a challenge because we're talking about virtual school, and this is not always, it's not always equitable, right? Because there's always the digital divide, there's broadband, and so we totally understand that, and it's like and then we don't want to keep them on all day. This is a shorter summit than we normally have, but we have to pivot, right? So we have to adjust to the times, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get them engaged in technology, find a way to utilize technology, because post-COVID, it's going to be around. This is not going anywhere. So the best way is to just get acclimated. And so I'm trying to make it fun, and I'm trying to give them fluidity. I'm trying to give them opportunity to still continue to build their human capital and their networking, even in a COVID environment.
Well, it's going to be a fantastic summit on August 29th. Of course, again, GoLocal, the media sponsor of the YesPVD Virtual Youth Summit.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate taking part in this inspiring event and this during these challenging times, and want to just say kudos to you for as breaking out of the mold and innovating in a way that engages youth, and as you said, will give them some agency, hopefully, to run it moving forward. So, Juan Wilson, we appreciate your taking the time to Skype in today. And if you're watching now, of course, we'll provide all the links to the summit so you can get more information. And if you have a school-age child here in Providence up through 24 and want to take part, we'll tell you how to take part. So, Juan Wilson, thank you for your time. We look forward to talking with you soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Thank you for
Bye-bye.
watching. We'll be back with more GoLocal Live. Dr. Michael Fine will be live at noon. Governor Gina Raimondo, her weekly 1 p.m. Wednesday coronavirus press conference. So be sure to catch back on GoLocal Prov and find us on Facebook when we're live with more. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagle.